So welcome everyone. This is Ken Fine, who is the writer, the book writer, wrote some of the music.
Lyricist.
The lyricist.
Producer.
The producer, the everything. He's running around like crazy and doing an amazing job. So we're very, very thankful to you for doing this work right now, especially, I mean, all these storms and incredible wildfires, and it's really important what you're doing.
Thank you.
Important to reach the kids and families. So I'm Heidi Huttner, and I'm very proud to be associate producer of this production, Endangered, the musical. And I'm really excited to have Dr. Pat Wright here today. She's a leading lemur specialist, primatologist, anthropologist, and I had the very good luck to visit your research sites and go to Madagascar with you, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And Shameika Hanson, who is my former student, who is just rocking it now as a leader in community activism. She works for Mothers Out Front, and we'll talk about that too. The really great thing about Mothers Out Front is they are teaching people how to mobilize in their communities. It's not about handing the power back to Mothers Out Front, but Mothers Out Front goes into communities and supports people with activism on projects they want to do. So very, very proud of you, and you're just doing amazing work and speaking all over and helping a lot. I know a lot of people working with you. So I'm going to start with some questions. I'm going to start with Pat, and because lemurs are important in this story, and then we'll get to climate change in a minute. So tell me your responses to the show, some thoughts you have about it.
It was really incredible, didn't you think?
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, the actors did a fantastic job. They were so dynamic, and I'm a primatologist. I study animal behavior. They had that animal behavior right down. It was excellent. And the theme. I mean, can the theme be more important than right now when Irma is left devastating Florida, and Jose is coming up the East Coast. I mean, this is a time when climate change is happening right now in front of us all. So this week in particular is climate change, week, and we have the UN General Assembly here, and this particular play is exactly, this musical is exactly what we want to hear in this week. But I hope it's going to inspire kids to action and their parents too.
Could you describe for us a little bit about what you do? One of the things that astounded me was I knew that you discovered the bamboo lemur, which is sort of interesting, the bamboo theme here, but you went to Madagascar with a little child on your own as a young woman, and you really sort of braved the wild. I mean, this is not an easy country to be in as a Westerner. It's quite rough. And it's much improved since you were there. I got to see a beautiful research site. But when you landed there, this was a difficult place to be in. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of taking care of the environment to preserve habitats for the lemurs, for instance, in Madagascar?
Well, Madagascar is an island that's it's the fourth largest island in the world, and it's right off the coast of Africa. And when I arrived there in 1984, it really made me sad because 95% of that habitat was gone. But then in 1986, I discovered a brand new species of lemur, the science, and it was amazing. This golden bamboo-eating lemur that nobody had ever seen before. And I was so excited about it. And I was in the middle of my research, I'm a research scientist, when the timber exploiters came in and started to cut down the forest. And I went to the Capitol and I said to the head of the Department of Water and Forest, I said, you got to stop this, because when you gave that concession, you didn't realize that there was a new species design, that there were 15 species, many of them highly endangered. And he said to me, yes, it's a good idea to preserve this forest, but this is Madagascar, and we have no money. We'll help you preserve the forest if you get the money to do it. And it was that moment that I realized that it wasn't you that was going to save that forest. It was me, an assistant professor who knew nothing about establishing a national park and nothing about really conservation, certainly not fundraising. So to make a long story short, we made a park and we preserved all those 15
And it is
species.
a magnificent park. It's just astounding. Astounding. When you arrive at your research site, you hear this rushing sound of a river. It's loud, it's gorgeous, and you can step out the door, and there are guides, and they take you in, and you can just follow lemurs. They're in the trees, you know. So sorry to interrupt you, but it's so exciting. And many other species, like you said, frog species and snakes, and well, you can tell us more.
Chameleons and birds and plants. I mean, some wonderful plants too. So this extraordinary rainforest is a tiny drop in the bucket, basically. I mean, there's so many things that we have to really think about saving, because we don't have a choice anymore of saying, well, that's a luxury, saving these habitats, because it's not anymore, because we've destroyed so much of this world in the last 20 years. But I don't want to be depressing. I want to tell you that we got to take action and bring back that forest that's been disappearing and preserve and make it possible somehow by also keeping the people alive, because it's not just the animals in the habitat. We also have the people that live around those forests, and we have to think about them too.
Thank you. So I'm going to switch now to Shameika for a little bit. So Shameika, you've moved out of, you were in college and you learned about environmental issues. Why did you want to go into community activism?
So I realized that climate change is a people problem. And it's really hard to solve a people problem without working and talking to people. So I chose the job of working with everyone from youth to now mothers, grandmothers, caregivers, and any other allies who would like to work with us to empower them to learn how to be more civically engaged in a part of the democratic process in order to move their local elected officials and decision makers to act on climate change and act aggressively and have a very swift and just and equitable transition so that we are not only protecting ourselves but the animals and everything else, because this blue planet is our only home.
So that's really wonderful. So I think so often and I'm sure you have this experience, I know you do too, Pat, where people leave a talk, where they leave a show like this, and they leave with a sense of, okay, it's really upsetting, we have climate change, and we have species extinction, and toxic pollution, and plastics in the ocean. What can we do? And so Mothers Out Front is a movement in the U.S. for American citizens, and it's all over the U.S., and it's pretty easy to find you. You can just Google Mothers Out Front, and you guys will come in and help a group organize and plan out and figure what you want to do.
Yes, if you are in your local community and you are interested in learning how to mobilize and take action, you can just sign up with us at mothersoutfront.org, and one of the community organizers in your area, myself included, will reach out to you and figure out how exactly it is you want to be a part of the movement. And if you are willing to do something as much as start a community team, that's great. We'll train you and support and give you all the coaching that you need to do that. And if you want to do something as simple as donate, we need that as well. So all forms of help are helpful, and we take everyone, no matter who you are. We're not partisan. We work across all lines because, as I said, this is a people problem. And until we learn of each other's stories and the issues that we all see, the other as having, then we can finally come to a place where we're at the same page and we can move forward.
Thank you so much. So let me go back to Pat now. Pat, I have a question for you, because one of the things I noticed in traveling around with you, and we looked at different communities, was the importance of women. And you said that when you educate the women and the women are engaged, you can really help both the community and the environment and the animals. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, because it's the women that are the kind of the heart of each family, as we all know. They're very important players in a family. They are the ones that often talk to their children about their future and what they're going to do. So if you empower women, they can make things happen. And in Madagascar, I mean, it's very interesting. In just one generation, you can really change a lot. Because if you give women education, this has been proved, then you really change things up a lot. So we have had one generation where we have had kids going to school, going to high school when their parents only had 3 years of education, and even going on to college. And those next generation, instead of having 9 kids, 10 kids, they have 2 or 3 kids, and they send them to school. And I don't think I really believed how quickly the change can turn around. So it's very important to empower women, to work with women. And in Madagascar, it's quite ironic because I study lemurs, and in the social system of lemurs, it's the females who lead. It's the females that make the decisions. And in Madagascar too, I think if we give the females a little bit more, the women a little bit more voice, things will turn around faster. And they understand climate change because they see what's happening in their backyard. Do you know why we get these storms? Madagascar, by the way. Madagascar gets category 4 and 5 cyclones. Usually once every 10 years. That's the history. Now we're getting them every 2 years or 3 years, or 3 or 4 a year. It's really changing the weather, the patterns. And of course, all the Malagasy people can see that. I mean, they're suffering for what Florida is suffering right now. They suffer when they get their category 4 cyclones. I mean, no houses are left, people are killed, and all their crops are gone, so they don't have food either. So they see that occurring more often and more often. Why? Because when the seas get warmer, which is of course happening, the cyclones get fiercer. And so it's a problem.
So there's another piece of that, which is, so your work in restoring a rainforest, expanding the rainforest. I know you have a plan to build more rainforests in Madagascar. Could you talk about the importance of the rainforests to helping climate change abatement?
Yes. I mean, rainforest is very, very tall trees, that have their roots in the ground. So they're keeping the soil down, and so they're diminishing erosion. So one of the major problems with climate change is you have these bigger storms and there's a lot more landslides, and that destroys a lot. But also just climate itself and temperatures. We have temperature sensors inside the rainforest, and it's 10 degrees, 15 degrees cooler inside the rainforest. So you have lots of rainforest, you have lots of cooler habitat that makes a difference all the way around. A rainforest is also, there's less malaria, mosquitoes in a rainforest, so you have, infectious diseases that are in the villages, that when you have more forest, you have less of them. The Anopheles mosquitoes and malaria mosquitoes in general do not like a rainforest habitat. They like to be outside in the open. Okay, so you have all these factors, and I'm thinking 95% of the forest is gone in Madagascar, and now that Borneo, too, has just lost recently almost 80% of their forest. And you have Brazil, which is burning as we speak. We're losing all that forest, which is, basically the lungs of our planet. So it's extremely important to take back that land. Let's quit crying about all this forest that's gone and figure out a way to bring it back. You plant trees, they grow. And so what we're doing in Madagascar now is we're planting endemic trees, but that's good for the lemurs, but what about the people? So underneath those endemic trees, I mean, we're talking about millions and millions of trees, we're planting vanilla, wild pepper, cloves, cacao, coffee. These are high-value crops that bring, great wealth to anybody that produces them and markets them. We're helping the local village to start these crops. We're getting these crops to market, and hopefully we're going to have them in New York to buy soon. So I think what we should be doing is not thinking about the problems, but figuring out the solutions. I mean, look at, if we can go to Mars and Cassini to Saturn, we certainly can really solve these problems. They're big problems. They're big problems that we're all going to go down if we don't solve them.
Thank you. So, Shameika, I'm going to ask you, when we were talking in the car, we drove together from Long Island. We both teach at Stony Brook University. Pat spent most of her time in Madagascar, but I catch her at Stony Brook. We were talking about solutions, and we were sort of coming up with our 5 top solutions that we could tell children specifically. This show is for children. I mean, it's for families, but I think it's really trying to speak to kids. And so, if you had to come up with your top group of solutions, what would they be?
Wow, that I did not have as much time to think about. So if I were thinking, if this was me, right, 15 years ago, what did I want to know? That part about being bamboozled is very true. Like, you guys got a lot of words for that going, but I'm going to pick bamboozled. And that's exactly how I felt. I was downright angry, actually. And I think educating yourself and doing it critically, so not just taking any piece of information from anywhere, not just listening to whatever is on your, timeline on Facebook or whatever, but really thinking through the information you're getting, and continuing to kind of, work through that. The other thing I would definitely say...
Can I just jump in there?
Yeah, please.
So I think what you're saying is don't just take the news at surface value, dig deeply, read multiple sources, and think critically, really learn. Okay.
And pay attention to what you've already learned, right? Because you'll see things pop up more than once that, I saw that before, that shouldn't be here right now. I guess I will give 5. I will also say, on top of educating yourself and thinking critically, is to also teach others. And don't be afraid to be a leader where you are and in what you're doing. And the last thing I'll say is pick one thing. Don't try to do everything. There are plenty of problems, and there are plenty of solutions, and we cannot do them all. And then I guess I have 4, which is work with other people. You can't do it by yourself, and it's always great to ask for help. We are a social being. We need other people. We literally cannot survive without other humans. So this problem will only get fixed by us thinking critically and questioning whatever we get to make sure that it is absolutely the right information, and working with others to ensure that these problems that we are actually picking to solve are ones that have solutions, and if they don't, we're creating them together.
Beautiful, thank you so much. Pat, if you had to give us your primary solutions that we can tackle right away, especially kids.
Yes, if we're going to tell kids what to do, which of course you should never do, but you can suggest. Every time you have a birthday, plant a tree. How about 5 trees? Because the trees are the lungs of the world, and that will help. How about eat a little bit less red meat? I know those hamburgers taste so good, but the truth is, it's those cattle that are creating a real big problem with rainforest. So, if 5 days a week you make a promise that you're not going to eat red meat, and those 5 days you can eat something else, I think that would help. If everybody did it, it certainly would help, because it's known that the cattle raising is a big problem. Let me think, what else?
Plastics.
Oh, plastics. I mean, most kids don't realize that plastics are really like oil in a different form. They know, that you're not supposed to use a lot of gas, but they don't realize that also don't use a lot of plastics. They're destroying a lot of our marine life, and also they're a real problem everywhere. And just reusing things. If you have to use plastic, just reuse it. In Madagascar, we don't have any trash. Why? Because if you toss something down, somebody will pick it up and use it. It's the sixth poorest country in the world. So just this recycling idea is something that's been around a long time, but it is very powerful if everybody does it. Solar power, I think this next generation is going to be thinking of alternative sources of energy, and I think that's going to save us a lot. I think the way we grow foods is extremely wasteful. And I think we're going to have to learn how to farm in a few different ways than we're doing now. I mean, these are little things that if a great group of people, a large group of people, actually start doing it, it's going to make a difference. And we all have to think that we have to make a difference. 7 billion of us on this earth. And there's not enough space. There's not enough space unless we really conserve our resources. And I know these are not new ideas, certainly not, but we just got to get more people to adopt them.
So I'm going to add a few, if no one minds. We talked about this as well, carpooling, riding your bike, really trying to reduce the automobile use. Another one that's really big is reduction of consumption. So turn those lights off. It seems like it doesn't matter, but if we all do it, you can be in New York City and see all those city lights on in the wee hours. I'm not sure why they're on, but we should turn them off. I think it would make a significant difference. So those are things kids can do. I mean, they can't drive a car, but they can say, hey, Mom and Dad, let's carpool, or I'll ride my bike to school. I can be more mindful of my consumption. I can say no to that plastic bag. I can carry my own bag. I can carry my own bottle that's reusable. I can eat less meat. And your suggestions were excellent too, but were they again? The educating oneself.
Yeah, I was also saying you can ask your parents to purchase carbon offsets. So travel, you can go online and go to an organization that will do good work for you in your community or in another. And there are plenty of organizations that do this. And you said donating your birthday. I will also add for your birthday, donating your birthday to a cause organization, which you can do. You can donate all of your gifts to organizations that are doing work on the ground. You can choose any organization you want. It doesn't have to be, specifically Mothers on the Front or, any other particular organization. But the idea is everyone can do something no matter the age. And if we each did at least a little bit, it would make a huge difference because 7 billion people is quite a lot. It's quite a lot.
I mean, just that number you think about, if you're in a small room with a lot of people, you just have to use less and you have to share more. It's basic, right?
I think the best quote I've heard is something we all learn when we're children, but no one should get seconds until everyone gets firsts. And if we take that through everything that we do, it's a very simple concept, but it'll get that equitable and just part down, right? So maybe Madagascar will be the 6th most impoverished place on the planet if more people ensure that others got what they needed when they needed it.
That raises the whole environmental justice question, which is both people who are poor and people who are people of color. We know the whole environmental justice, Bob Bullard has done studies showing that Black communities are overwhelmingly harder hit with all kinds of environmental issues. They'll be the ones who suffer the most. And we're seeing it right now with all these storms. Who's left behind, right? Are there any final words from you both? Pat, would you like to conclude for us?
Well, I think environmentalists and conservationists have been talking a lot about gloom and doom in the last couple decades, and I really think that we have to take a different approach. And that's why I love this musical today, because I saw that, it's that kind of a performance. It hits you in your heart, and then you're more moved to really do something. Action is very important, but we have to reach out to people. So I think that there's got to be more of a collaboration between the arts, not just musicals, but also the visual arts, etc., and the environmentalists, because that's the way to reach people's hearts, and I think it's good. to do that.
Shameika?
So I guess my final words for everyone as we depart, anyone who watches this later, would be that, again, each individual action completely makes a difference, and you can be an artist, a musician, you can be someone who just knows ASL and can communicate this to people who don't, actually speak, right? There are so many different ways that people can really use their talents. There are graphic designers who can create images and take statistical and analytical information and create an image from it that people will understand, right? So there are so many different things that people can do, and I don't think naming them would be good, because I think folks are creative, and I think people, once they have a challenge and something that they're motivated around, they can figure out how to use their talents to do good work. I think it's more about just getting up and doing the work at this point, because we don't have time to talk about it anymore at all. Thank you, Heidi and Keni and the cast and everyone else. The musical was absolutely amazing and super inspiring, super motivating, super informative, and really entertaining.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you both so much. I mean, there's so many more things we can say, and one of the things I wanted to sort of conclude with, I have two women here, right? From the different ends of the age, the elder and the young person. It's so inspiring to have you both here, doing different work, but doing the same work, really. It's about taking care of our earth. And I think it's also one thing, we talked about environmental justice, but women are also worldwide the hardest hit by environmental injustice, and we can't forget that. And so thank you both for working on that. I know that the women in Madagascar did not traditionally go to upper education, and so that's key. And the other thing in some of the communities I met with, they said that women need to learn about reproductive health, and that's part of that education. And then they can choose to have 2 or 3 if that's what they want to do, which will then enable them to live healthier lives and do other things with their lives if that's what they want to do. So that's really, really important, and that has had an impact. And true for our local communities, education, having those opportunities. So thank you both so much, and thank you, Keni, and it's a great show. Everyone, I hope you'll come see it. Is there a question?
Yeah, kind of a comment or a question.
Thank you, Lawrence, that was great. So what you first said was that you thought this triangulation of the topic of environment and science and animals and theater and activism is a very, very important piece. All of these things coming together, and that's an incredible point. And then you talked about the need to get this to the general public, to get this to other countries, to get it to the United Nations, so that we get this message out.
The show
Specifically.
The show is the message.
The show is the message.
Kids, and it's an entertainment. The age counts, which is why I think it deserves a lot of credit for the rest. Great show.
So you're saying this is an important show for children specifically, and a really important message, and you'd like it to get to other countries and through the United Nations, and sort of get past the current administration, which is trying to block all sorts of environmental protections. I can see, Pat, you wanted to address that.
I think that's a great idea. I had this is the week for the United Nations General Assembly. And I would like, if you would like me to do this, to propose that that we start this show going on the road.
Yeah.
And we bring it to Madagascar and Kenya, or all those animals are from. And that we start now, and we get a plan for the next year. We'll get some UN money, we'll get some other money too, and we'll get going. Because this is a great show. It's an absolutely super message, and it's urgent.
But thank you. And we're so excited about what you're saying, and you just proposed in a very, very important piece, which is how to take this into the world, beyond our beautiful small theater here, and to take it out and to get the message out, because especially for kids, and it's so well done, it has so much heart, Keni. It really does. And the message is fun and uplifting, but it's also deep and profound. So thank you so much. Come up here and just let us thank you. Keni really has worked hands and fingernails and in the dirt and really put his heart and soul and blood into this. Just want to thank you, and just want to say a few words as we close.
Thank you. Well, Thank you. It is a profound moment in time, I think, that we live in, and I feel called to speak to that moment, and I feel called to, recognize the soul of animals as well as the soul of people, and that's a lot of what we wanted to put into the show, and that's a lot of what I want to convey, and I believe children respond to that because we're educated out of all that. We're educated away from dealing with matters of soul. We're educated away from dealing with matters of the heart. So that's one of the things that I believe, things can be entertaining but also convey depth and profound messages and meaning, and that's what they are naturally drawn to. So I honor the work of all three of you up here, and I also feel it is profoundly important for the women of the world to arise and speak out and, help save the world, really. Women are much more the caretakers of the world. They are the ones who give birth. They are the ones who traditionally nurture, and I just think it's vital that happens too. So that's why there's strong women and female characters in the show. It was very important. The lead character was actually written to be a girl, boy or girl, so this version it's a boy, but it's written so it could easily be a girl or any gender person could play that part. So that is what we try to do. I'm really very grateful for everyone who came and was willing to witness. I mean, it's everything we do, we need to witness each other's work. We need to witness each other's spiritual commitment to what we do, and we're all trying to help uplift the planet and save it at the same time. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank everyone for coming. Send your friends.